Okay, so let's get involved in a new project. And what I'm doing inside of Eclipse is I'm just creating a static web project. And my goal here is I want to run through two different examples of the use of JSON. And let me get this rolling, and then we can get more into the academics of it. Right, so I'm just going to call this my JSON demos. And I'm going to have a folder called web content where I'm going to put a new HTML file. And that would give me, what I like about Eclipse is it gives me a little bit of a template to get started. And it will lay down some HTML5 building blocks there for me. Good. Try to expand that a little bit. So let me just say quickly, let me put some notes down here. JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. And the purpose is a structured data transfer over an internet connection. I think its prior, its precedent would have been XML. And you guys, and therefore we would have used it in an asynchronous JavaScript and XML transaction. Now we call it AJAJ, which is, we don't really hear that much, but it's asynchronous JavaScript and JSON. And when you take a look at it in action, you realize that it's going to be all about assigning kind of a name to the data. So when the data arrives, it's already kind of declared as a variable of sorts. So it's very easy to turn data into variables. And the value of that is that you guys could always use your jQuery to take that new variable and put it somewhere within your page structure, especially where there's a div or a paragraph with an ID. You could always take everything with an ID and then assign that nicely. That's the upshot of jQuery. And so what we do next is we say, okay, well, now that you know how to move data, put it wherever you want, given your ID inside of JavaScript, now how do I take that JavaScript object and unpack it after the internet has sent it to me, and then I can move it around somewhere. And that provides us with a smart platform for development. So I know you guys have been building up your JavaScript toolkit. Let me just say that you're probably going to learn some new stuff today that you can really use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this JSON example 1. And so let's just use that very simple title, get right into the body. And let's set up a paragraph here. Well, we'll introduce JSON. And utilize a JavaScript object with keys for each data. So inside of this, I'm going to set up a paragraph also with an ID equal to demo. And then we'll set up a script here where we're going to set up a quick variable. And I want to try to zoom in as much as I can. That's probably about as far as I can go. Do you think you guys can see this? All right, you're nice people for saying yes. Okay, var text is equal to, now JSON is always enclosed in single quotes and double quotes. So I'm going to create a special collection called employees. It's kind of an array, kind of a dictionary. And what's challenging about JSON is you have to use a lot of plus signs, and you need to use a lot of these bracketing in order to keep it organized. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of spatialize it. And I'm going to say for this object, I'm going to create a first name for this employee. And let's capitalize that because it's going to be transformed into a variable in a sec. And let's say that first name and let's eliminate that space right there. It's going to be called John. And then let's say that the last name, and I'm going to put that right after, is going to accord to the variable doe. And so that's going to be our first employee. What's happening is I'm encoding a payload that I'm going to send over the internet. And that payload is going to move very quickly with as much efficiency as possible. And then that large collection of data is going to arrive inside of your JavaScript and your web page. And so you don't actually define the JavaScript, the JSON, but maybe, like in the case of Amazon Web Services, your Dynamo database is going to send you data in the form of a JSON string, just like this. So your job is going to be to unpack it and then use it inside of your page. So let's keep going here, and I'll restate that a number of times. And so let's create another first name. But you see how tedious it is actually hand coding JSON? It is. We usually form our algorithms over this kind of quoting. But usually we don't write the JSON. We're just doing it here as an example. Great. And so we're creating that collection. And inside of that, let's bracket that. And let's create another. But it's a good exercise nonetheless. I mean, it's a character building experience to code up some JSON yourself. Maybe an experience you don't want to have again. So that'll be the end bracket. And then we'll place a bracket behind them. And then we'll contain. And that should be good to go. So we don't actually need to include that. And so that's going to be, and I'm going to comment that by saying that that's my JSON payload. And you guys should imagine this big payload is arriving from some database somewhere. And so what we're going to do is we're creating an object inside of JavaScript that will require us to parse that text and unmarshal it as a object. Then let's get element by ID based upon the demo paragraph that we have up there, where we'll say we'll take the inner HTML like we did a few weeks ago and set that equivalent to object employees and take the first available employee and take his first name, then put a space there, plus the last name, and then we'll have that printed. And let's take a look at how that winds up. And I think we can run the private web browser here for this one. No, let's just locate it on the file system. Let's locate that in show in the System Explorer. Go to a new file, and so let's open that up. So you can see this doesn't look like much. Like there's not a lot of drama that's happening right here. But you realize, where did Anna Smith come from? So if we inspect that element a little bit, we've got a pretty generic head. And then inside of the body, we've got our script right here. And you realize that demo, when we first coded this, was empty. But it got populated with the first item right here. So it grabbed employee number 1, which is the second employee, first name plus last name. And that's where we get Anna Smith. It's from the JSON payload. So let's go back there a little bit, and let's kind of do another experiment. Where let's grab the first employee, or employee 0, and then let's grab the third employee, or employee 2. This is kind of array notation right here. And let's kind of refresh that page. Now, what I had to do here is I screwed up because we're all putting that into demo, and we only have one ID called demo right there. So actually, the last Peter Jones gets placed into that demo. So let's kind of fix that a little bit by creating demos 1, 2, and 3. So this is going to be where we'll put Anna, or rather John Doe. This is where we'll put Anna, and this is where we'll put Peter. So demo 1, demo 2, and this will be demo 0. So we'll put this one into demo 0, put that one in demo 1 and demo 2. And so that should give us some different outcomes at this point. Zoom it down a little bit. So now I have each of these demos kind of firing with different JSON in there. And so my payload comes across the wire, feasibly from the internet, and then I'm going to print the outcomes of that there. And this is about as good an example as we should give right now, because it's leveraging a couple of important things that you guys know right now, one of which is the usage of the ID inside of HTML, JavaScript being skilled enough to find the ID of things, get that element by ID, and then populate it, and what your new skill is, with the elements of some JSON. Does that make sense? So, yeah, as you can see, my memory is running low. So I'm going to save this video real quick and push it up on to YouTube. Why don't we give you a 5-minute break, and then we'll do our second demo. Don't forget to subscribe.